All right. So, how many of you guys are familiar with the Indian Ocean tsunami from 2004? Deadliest natural disaster in recorded history, killed almost 250,000 people. I mentioned this because Austin asked me to spend 5 minutes and tell my testimony today. And I can't tell a full testimony in 5 minutes. So, I'm going to tell this story. This story changed my entire life, changed the entire trajectory of my life. So, my family, we lived on, so this is in 2004. So I was born in 2000, so I was 4 years old at the time. And my family, we lived on, they're called the Andaman Islands. So there's three little islands. It's a union territory of India. So it's kind of like what Hawaii is to the United States. But it's very close to Thailand, very close to Indonesia. So we lived on the South Andaman Island, and it's Christmas Day, 2004, and my mom has a flight to catch. She's flying to the mainland for a few weeks, and I was very close to my mom growing up, so I was very sad. There aren't many days I remember prior to the age of 4, but these 2 days, the 25th and the 26th, I still remember so clearly, but I was really sad. So my mom goes and she gets in her flight. She's like, goes through boarding, gets in her flight, and it's a full flight. And the one seat that was for her had malfunctioned. So, my mom, she argues with them for a little bit. It's a whole situation, but they tell her, you have to go home. You come back tomorrow, you fly for free. Okay. So my mom comes back, and I was, of course, very excited. Even though my mom was going to have to go back the next day, I was just happy about that. I was 4 years old. I didn't really understand, right? And so we go to bed, and of course, the next morning, my mom never ends up catching that flight because I remember this so clearly. I remember waking up, just sitting up in my bed. I shared a room with my older sister, and it sounded fake almost. There was this rumbling sound, and I had no idea. Like, I was just frozen there. I had no idea what's going on. And things are falling, pieces of the ceiling are just falling down. And so in my parents' bedroom, my mom is trying to wake my dad up. My dad's a heavy sleeper. So she's up first and she's trying to wake my dad up. He eventually wakes up and he comes running into my room, picks me up, grabs my older sister's arm, and we run outside. Eventually, all of us get outside of the house. None of the water hit us because we lived on a fairly high altitude area. So there wasn't any water that hit us, but it was the earthquake, and it was bad. So our whole house came crumbling down, and just like that, we lost everything. Right? My dad's car was at the mechanic shop. That got completely destroyed. My parents owned a business. They had a clothing store, and that got completely destroyed. And so just like that, we lost everything. And we literally became homeless overnight. I remember we lived in our backyard then after that. And it's not like here how you imagine a backyard with grass. It was just rubble. And I remember we had these purple mosquito nets, and we used those to make a tent. And that was our life. And in that, of course, Canada, because of this natural disaster, this terrible thing that happened, was helping certain families out. And so they essentially sponsored my family to come to Canada. And then I had the blessing of, from kindergarten all the way to grade 12, growing up in this amazing country, meeting all of you guys. In elementary school, I met my best friend Nav. In high school, I met my now wife, Livia. And so this completely changed the entire trajectory of my life. And the reason I tell this story is because if it wasn't for this, I most likely wouldn't be Christian today. I wouldn't be standing right here today with all of you guys and having this community and this family that we have here. And, it's not just that. If certain things were different, if my mom had went and caught that flight, who knows? Who knows what would have happened? Our whole house came down in pieces, right? So it's just a matter of a few seconds. It could have been really bad. And I tell this because these topics are some of the most difficult topics to deal with in life, right? Like especially for a Christian in the Christian worldview, but for atheists, for theists, whoever it is, it's why do we have so much pain and so much suffering in this world, especially things that are like natural disasters, animal suffering, all these things. It's just such a difficult topic to navigate. And I bring this up because it always brings me right back to this, right? Like this is, to some, this is an insult. This is defeat. This is ugly. This is not, as Austin would put, aesthetic, right? This is not, this is the lowest of lows. Like we serve a God that is familiar with suffering, that is familiar with pain. And even in this, he is able to tell a redemptive story. And that is exactly what he did in my life. Was he took something so terrible, such a terrible natural disaster. And I know for some families it was so much worse. And for some families, they lost a lot more. But, God was able to take something like that and turn it into a redemptive story in a way that glorifies him, which ultimately is what the cross is, right? So, yeah, I don't have enough time to, after that to tell a full testimony, but this story just completely changed my life. So.